Hey, welcome to Halo Lovin' Country. I'm Richard Gayton, psychologist, writer, filmmaker, a general big talker. And, Mitch is here with me, and he's an actor, producer. Halo Lovin' Country has always been about um, the risk of speaking out. Whether you're LGBTQ or you're just an American citizen now, in our past episodes, you want to check them out if you're of a mind to. We've had many guests that have talked about what it was like to take the risk of speaking out or being themselves just in the military. And today we're going to talk about the issue of protesting or effective resistance to illegal authority. And I think we're seeing a lot of illegal authority in our country right now. We particularly have seen it in these immigration raids. It's a wide-ranging problem now within our government. But we're going to focus some on immigration today. And I want to refer you to an article in Harper's magazine. It's called 38 Days of ICE. 38 Days of ICE. And this is by Daniel Brook, and you can find it online. Some places I saw it paywalled, other places it wasn't. It's about a 12-page article, and it talks about something we're less aware of in the media, which is the response of the residents of New Orleans to the ICE operation. It was called, I love it, it was called Operation Swamp Sweep, or as they called it, Operation SS. And we all know what SS has stood for in the past. And Greg Bovino came to town in his German military greatcoat. Little Greg came to town. And Trump he uses this kind of approach of trying to scare a city before he sends somebody there. So he was kind of musing about this, whether he was going to send ICE to New Orleans. And what this article says, what Daniel says, is that people they had some difficulty sleeping. A lot of residents were having trouble sleeping, hearing of the president's threats, and then of course when they arrived, it was horrendous. And so the way he described it is there was a macabre possibility haunted us at night. Paranesian visions of dungeons and interrogation chambers. And I never heard of the word Paranesian before, so I looked it up. It's like, it's this dark maze of foreboding, that comes when a group of people invade your state in uniforms, wearing masks, ostensibly being the police that are there to protect us, but who have come with, as he put it, thousands of pounds of pepper spray, pellets, CS gas, and batons. But it's kind of a military invasion into the city. And much of it was patently illegal. And yet there's people in this very difficult situation of being immigrants, some of them undocumented, some of them criminals in the sense that they had a DUI or they had some minor problems, or some of them had very major problems, but some of them were felonies. And, they were harassing people that were undocumented, and they were wanting to arrest them, take them to camps, and deport them. And we know later on in Minneapolis what happened after that. This was an account before Minneapolis. It was sort of thought of as a warm up. So 250 ICE agents came to Minneapolis with all their gear. and they began trying to do mass deportations. And what happened is the community rose up, the undocumented community and the people who cared for them, their neighbors, their friends, it was like people that didn't even know them stepped up to take care of them. They found a way to feed them, allow them to stay in in their own homes and shelter in place while these raids were going on. There was training going on. These there were became like 1,000 activists. 1,000 people got trained how to deal with ICE, and part of it was that you don't really have to respond if somebody asks you what your immigration status is. You
Right.
can just keep your mouth shut. You don't have to say anything. I mean, it's uncomfortable in it. And the guy that wrote Daniel took the training, and he said it was really uncomfortable. He played an ICE agent in a role play. He said it was really uncomfortable for just the social situation where a man in uniform asks you for something and you just don't respond.
I'm one of those people who tell people, you're not supposed to talk to the police, but I do it all the time. If I get stopped, and most of the time, if I get stopped, I get a warning. And as long as they're being pleasant to me, it just kind of falls out that I am pleasant to them. It really takes until they start acting inappropriately. I just kind of by reflex don't want to make anybody's day harder.
Yeah.
And it's just a cop. Most of the time the cops don't want to be there doing what they're doing either. They're just trying to make sure that basic laws are followed. People aren't being dangerous
Mhm.
to one another. But when you run into that cop who's an absolute idiot, then you do well, yeah, I'm not talking to you. Whatever you're here for. Here's my paperwork. Take your stuff. Get away from me. Leave me be. Am I being detained? But yeah, I agree with what you're saying. It is awkward to just look at somebody and just be like, I have nothing to say to you.
And I run into South American immigrants all the time in here in California. A woman ran into me. She rear-ended me. She was working down the street, taking care of a disabled kid, and the sun was in her eyes, and whatever. She
Mm.
rear-ended me. So polite, so kind, admitted fault, had insurance, took responsibility for it. They paid for it. Blah blah blah. And my experience with immigrants is that they are overly polite and overly kind, and they are used to being deferential to authority. And in most circumstances, that's exactly the way to handle it is to, you get stopped by a polite police officer, there's been somebody's been hurt in the neighborhood, and the police want to ask you if you've seen anything. I mean, most of the time, it's absolutely the best. And it's our civic responsibility to be polite and helpful. But when you have people, what happens when you have people in uniform that are breaking the law? And you have, and they're, and what I'm concerned about is that a 50-year-old abuelita, a, a woman who's um, just come from taking care of her children, some of the children in her family, she, she she's gonna a man in a uniform stops her, she's going to be polite to him. She's going to respond to him, and if he asks her immigration status, she's going to tell him the truth. Bad idea. And how and it takes training to realize that ICE agents in their current form, in their current training, are not trained like normal American city policemen. They're not trained to be polite. They're not trained to be the part of the community. They're not part of the community. They're a force that have come out and they've been instructed that they don't seem to have to follow the law. And so anyway, that was the training within the community, was just not to respond. And I think it's been pretty effective because the raids at first the raids were very effective in New Orleans, and then very quickly they dropped off. It went on for weeks. And so people were sheltering in their homes, but the community had organized. It had neighbors had talked to neighbors. People were showing up with food. People were taking children to school. People were escorting um, old parents to doctor's appointments. And then a very interesting thing started, which Mr. Brooks described, was something called ojos, which is in Spanish is eyes. And this was an online site that you could join, and activists reported in the sighting of ICE agents. And they reported very specifically, they reported the times, the places, that when they had seen them there, not when they'd heard that they were there, but they had seen them there. And then they reported when the people when the ICE agents left.
which is being challenged as illegal interference with
Is it
official.
being considered? Yeah, would that be considered interference?
Yeah, with official duties. Yeah,
Is it
aiding
illegal?
and
I don't
abetting.
know.
It's not, it is still being challenged as such. And unfortunately, as we have seen with ICE, they'll charge you with anything that makes them happy in order to take you in. So it doesn't matter whether or not you've committed a crime, or whether you were recording when you shouldn't be, or if you were too close. Uh, if they decide to take you in, you're going to get tackled, cuffed, and thrown in the back of a vehicle, and we'll see you maybe a couple weeks, couple months.
Yeah, the question is then is do we have a duty when masked men who seem to be well after the New Orleans time was before Minneapolis, but now that's that bigger question. If masked men come into our community, they're directly violating laws like flashing warrants that do not exist, that are administrative somehow. They call them warrants, but a warrant is a judicial warrant from a judge. Do we have a duty to resist that? And it seems like, as in the military, the military has a duty to resist illegal orders. Don't we have a list, or don't we have a responsibility to resist uh, the illegal behavior of people that come into our community?
And the problem there is deciding what qualifies as illegal, or even inappropriate, or questionable, where you and I might agree, and I say might, you and I might agree that a policeman showing up at the door to ask you a question leaves you the full right to say, I don't have anything to say to you. I know people who would say when a cop asks you a question, you answer it. And there's no shade, there's no maybes, there's no variance. When a policeman asks you a question, you answer that question. Um, and I know plenty of people who are of the opinion that ICE agents, by dint of being federal officers, can do every single thing they have done, whether
Hmm.
regardless of who they're stopping, whether or not they have a warrant, they are just allowed.
Hmm.
And we've gone through this weirdness where it takes a year for a particular aspect of law to go through the courts and then say, yeah, they were out of line. No, they were not out of line. This is permissible within this set of circumstances, which does you no good when they've just pulled you over and are trying to drag you out of your car because they don't believe you're a citizen. Um, that they showed up at your door with no warrant and just want to come inside and snatch everybody that looks brown enough or has an accent. And that's the sort of stuff that they're doing. It's, yeah, the fact that as citizens, we don't all have a basic understanding of what our rights are versus our responsibilities versus their duties as officials is very uncomfortable. No, uncomfortable is the wrong word. It's very confusing
That's
that we
exactly the
can.
word I was going to use. It's because here we are talking about it, and I don't know exactly what is legal because I'm reporting what New Orleans did, but I don't think we know what's legal. I don't I don't think we even know if an ICE agent shows up over my front door here and says, um, "You have a brown person." My God, that seems horrendous. You have a brown person in your house. We'd like to arrest him. Do I have to let them in? So, I mean, these are the issues that people are facing every day in New Orleans, Minneapolis, Los Angeles, New York.
Yeah. Yeah. Where does it, where it, and there's always that awkwardness of where is federal law versus where is my state law versus what have my local police already said they are and are not going to do. Yeah, it creates a mishmash of, am I going to get backed up by doing the thing that I say that I know to be right because they actually have the authority, and if they say it's wrong, even though I know it's wrong, if they say it's right, even though I know it's wrong, they're still going to arrest me,
Yeah,
and
you're
it's
still
just a
going to be,
question.
you're still going to end up in detention. Maybe you'll get deported. Even if you're an American citizen, maybe you'll get deported. It's
Hmm.
a, it's amazing. Hmm. So, well, anyway, what they did and there, because when you get on the ground, you have to decide. There's a practical, what are you going to do? And I don't know if what they did, we don't know if what they did, what these activists did, but if it was legal or not. But what they did do is they said, stay in your house, lock your door, don't answer the door.
Right,
If you're
right.
stopped, do not respond to questions about your immigration status. Very clear stuff. And then they talked about protesters. I thought it was very interesting too. Said you have a right to film protesters, but as Alex Preddy found, you may be shot if you do. Bottom line, um, and what they're suggesting is don't get within touching distance of a federal agent. Don't approach them closer than touching distance. Don't let them come closer to you. Does that solve everything? Not at all.
Yeah,
It's
because
just,
that's literally going to vary from state to state. How close can I be to a police officer
hmm,
and record, even if I'm completely uninvolved in the situation? How close can I be? If I'm sitting in my car and he walks up to my door, well, he has set the distance by walking up to the door. But if I happen to be driving by and stop, how close can I get and film? And that does vary from state to state. How close can I be to a police officer doing his official work and recording? Because to the best of my knowledge, there is no state where it is not legal to record officials in the course of their duties.
yes, that seems right.
But I could be wrong. There you go. I could be wrong.
Yeah. So,
The Supreme
and
Court makes weird decisions every day.
there's the risk. You know, on this on this podcast, we've talked about the risk of just standing up and protesting, or the risks of going into the military. But there's also the risk of just being in America now, and the risk of being an immigrant in America. The risk, and probably the risk that's always been there, but now is acute. The risk of having anything but white, pink skin. You know, it's like, what if you have the wrong colored skin and you're in a place where ICE is, you're in danger now. And it's like coping with that is huge in America right now. It's like, what do we do? Now, what happened, I love what New Orleans did, which is they got their community together, and just in really basic stuff, they fed each other. They brought food. They made sure people were taken care of. They checked on people. They checked on the old people. They escorted the young people. And this is, and if you look back, I hate to make the comparison to the Weimar Republic as the Nazis were taking over in Germany. Um, Many in the religious communities, not all, but some towns, some areas of in Berlin stood totally by their Jewish neighbors
Mhm.
and hid them, and fed them, and protected them. But finally, when the political system was completely taken over by a violent mob of fascists, they could not protect. So far, there's been some limit on the level of militarized lawlessness by the government in America. There's been some limit, but this is in my 78 years of being around, this is the most lawless government I've ever seen, ever. But much more than Nixon. Nixon, Nixon, Nixon helped plan a burglary, supported a burglary, and he supported the shooting of protesters. I mean, he did a lot of stuff, but nothing like this. This is a new level of militarized government violence against American citizens. It's amazing.
Well, so you were saying that the folks in New Orleans, they organized, they protected one another, they escorted people, and I feel like that's what was going on in Minnesota as well.
Yes.
We I feel like there was something very similar to that happening in California. I imagine it has to have happened to other places, and we're not hearing about it
Mm-hmm.
because it's not the standard yet, because that feels like resistance on a level that could be seen as illegal. You're getting between the police or federal agents and their targets, whether or not it's legal for them to target those people at all. And that steps into that line of at what point have you infringed the law as the federal government may choose to see it. Um,
Yes.
on exactly that line, we just had that situation in Prairie Land. Prairie Land, where was it? I forget which state that was in. But we just had like 8 people convicted of supporting a terrorist because they demonstrated outside of the ICE Prairie Land Detention Center. And someone, a man named, and that one I remember, it was a gentleman named Benjamin Song who had a rifle who fired it at an agent, didn't kill him, but did injure him.
Ooh. Yeah.
And
Did
they
he injure him?
arrested, yeah, yes, I
Okay.
believe he hit him in the neck.
No.
Um, but it
Ooh,
was like
wow.
it was a clip. He didn't blow his head off, but he did injure a federal agent, somebody at that detention center. But they ended up arresting 8 or 9 different people and finding them guilty of providing material support to a terrorist because they were uh, present effectively, and wearing black clothes, which is somehow an Antifa tactic, which somehow, as we well know, for the Trump administration, Antifa is not a philosophy; it is an organization, and it's one
Well, it
that they
has its
don't.
head. Well, it has its headquarters, on the moon.
I
But
have heard that they do run shuttles back and forth to make sure that their people are here on time for
it's
meetings.
it's a well organized conspiracy, and it's moon based. That's all I can. But anyway, yeah. So
Yeah,
it's
well,
so,
we
but I
we,
didn't
we
know
know
that. I
that the
didn't.
Greys are not 100%, on the side of the federal government. There are breakaway factions of the Greys who look out for the little guy. I'm still waiting for him to show up and give me my ray gun and my invisibility belt. But they probably know that I would misuse stuff like that, so I'll be without for a while longer. But yes, so 8 people convicted based on possession of political pamphlets, hiding political pamphlets, which I did not understand how that part worked. Um, Firing bottle rockets at a stone building, and they called there's an explosives charge associated to that. Uh, One way or the other, that was deter those people are facing 15 years in prison for effectively being present when someone else committed a crime, because they're saying they were all working as a unit where basically people showed up for a rally. And that's a
Yeah.
technique. And so my question, so that leans back to my idea of, if you're getting in the way of agents doing their job, at what point um, have you infringed the law? If I'm escorting people and getting between you and them, at what point am I infringing the law? Since you didn't show up with if you didn't come in with a warrant in the first place, how am I required? How am I required to get out of your way? You have no official right to be here anyway. No, to the best of your knowledge, no one here has committed a crime. You can't list the crime they committed other than existing, which isn't a crime. So, why do I have to do anything you say?
And this is the danger. This is the ambiguity now of engaging in protest or in um, getting near federal agents who are doing their job legally or doing their job illegally. You raise your level of risk. It's the same issue with it's a completely different question, but it's related. Is following illegal orders in the military.
Hmm.
We're absolutely trained not to follow. If somebody says to shoot a civilian that is not harming anyone but is just there, it's illegal. It's plainly illegal.
Well, and that's literally the same problem. You say plainly illegal, but we know that if you, uh, Edward Snowden, if you reveal a crime, you are
Hmm.
in the process of committing a crime yourself. Because the information you're having to use to establish that a crime was just committed puts you on the wrong side of the line. You're going to be punished for refusing that order. And obviously, Snowden wasn't refusing an order, he was revealing information. But we also know that when a soldier refuses to follow an order, the first thing that happens is he goes to lockup. And someone has to determine whether or not it was appropriate for him to refuse that order. But meanwhile, he's being punished. Uh,
And that
and
never
because
gets
that is
undone. Yeah.
Yes, yes. So, which makes it the exact same problem that we have as civilians dealing with a legal system that, again, takes, the court, it may take a year for the entire case to make its way through the courts. And God only knows how much of that time you're going to spend in a cell. And as we have seen, the government is more than happy to ship you to parts unknown during that time and make up any number of things. Oh yeah, no, he self-deported. He said he wanted to go to Ecuador, and you've never been seen or heard from again, so maybe you said it, maybe you didn't. I mean, if they send me to Ecuador, I'm just going to try to figure a way to come back to the United States, because it's not like if I can get dropped off on a beach somewhere, I don't have to prove anything after I hit the beach in Florida. I'm from the United States. I'm just going to walk to a random building and call home. I'm going to call a friend in Florida. I'm going to call my family and say, hey, I'm at such and such beach. Come get me. Uh, and I suppose when they figure out I came back, I'm going to get arrested again. I don't know. I don't know.
So it's not without risk, but I would say that the more the more that American people will vote with their nonviolent showing up behavior, either showing up to bring food who need it, showing up to transport people, showing up at No Kings. The No Kings, the national mobilization for No Kings is March 28th. I hope you'll join me there. There'll be one in your city, wherever you are. Showing up, it's not very dramatic. Not one person showing, just one person showing up on the street with a sign. But what it does is it joins the vast majority of American people that do not approve of what Trump is doing and do not approve of lawlessness. And any silence in the wake of this encourages it. And then we saw it in the Weimar Republic where people just went silent. And there was a good reason, by the way, in Germany before the Nazis to go silent, because there was tremendous political violence. People would shoot you, kill you, whatever. And there was good reason. We haven't gotten that point yet in California where you're going to get shot for showing up in the street and protesting. But there are places where you might. So that's it's a real risk now. And we need to point that out and to keep pointing it out. As long as a lawless government is allowed to continue, we are all at risk, but there are some people that are more at risk than others. It's like, wow. And it's good to face it, to know that. I don't think it's risk-free to go to an indivisible rally or a No Kings rally. I don't think it's risk-free. I mean, I have my eyes open when I go. I'm in California, so it's pretty safe. But I also remember very well, and I don't see it anymore. I don't know what it is, but I used to see guys in pickup trucks riding around with flags in the back of their car and threatening people. I can see that. I don't see that now. It's much less. I'm glad it's less here in California. I hope it's less across the country. I hope people, at least some people, will realize that it was a mistake, a grave mistake, to put something like a MAGA movement or the Trump movement, the Trump person in power. It was a huge electoral mistake, but maybe it was good. I don't know, Mitch. What do you think about that? Is to let this, to have MAGA be visible now, watch what they do with power, watch how they ruin most everything they touch. It's a very interesting sort of thing. Maybe America needed to look at itself in the mirror and see, yep, there's, just in case you think we're not racist anymore, just you think we're not violent folks anymore, take a look, you know?
Yeah, and it's a basic issue that we don't remember our history. It seems like we have to redo this lesson every 30 or 40 years. There's nothing happening right now that hasn't happened before. Just, slightly different shades. But about every 30, 40 years, we have to remind ourselves that we hate people that we don't think are from here. And so those people crawl up out of the sewers and out from under their rocks, and they're loud and they're ugly and they're lynching and they're murdering quietly, and then they're doing it more loudly, and then we all go, no. And it stops for another 20 years, and then it starts winding up and winding up and winding up, and now it's loud again. And we say, stop. It's.
And in the last 30 or 40 years, usually we've had the government on the side of stopping it, or at least the federal government.
Yes,
Usually.
yes.
Now now we have the federal government fomenting it. It's very interesting.
Right. Yeah, that is definitely a change. And that comes, I think, just from the fact that Trump was very clear about the horrors he was going to visit on this country.
Hmm.
And despite people saying, "Oh, he didn't mean it that way," or if he did mean it that way, he's not actually going to do it. He was, or even if he does it, he's not going to do it that way. And even if he does it, that whole process.
Yeah.
Um, Most of us understood that he said what he was going to do. He spends so much time being honest about what he's going to do that you sometimes forget that he means everything he says, because it's insane that anyone could say some of the things he says out loud. It's far from a situation of not taking him seriously. I always took him seriously, and when um, once he got the once he got the nomination the first time, I knew he was going to win. It wasn't a question of, oh, well, he's the nominee. I guess we better rally. No, I knew he was going to win because there at that point, there was 60 years worth of people we'd been telling to shut up, go back under your rock. This is not how we work as a country. They were never not here. They were just quiet.
They were quiet
And he gave
and
them
polite.
well, polite when they had no other choice. We don't have to, you're gay and I don't like you, but I have no legal excuse to mistreat you until Trump. And because, we saw them fighting before that. What we didn't see was the government, as you said, they didn't have government support. The courts knew better. The courts understood that the law says you don't have to like him, but you cannot treat him any differently in public than you would treat anyone else. In your house, that's your business. You don't like your kid because he's gay, you're allowed to throw him out. Somebody else will get to take care of your child. Um, we hope you rot in a particularly special corner of hell for being such a disgusting person, but we can't do anything about that here. In the same way, you're allowed to mistreat your child. We're not allowed to mistreat you for mistreating your child until you come to our house. But yeah,
But
publicly,
the complaint was, using the gay analogy, is that somehow the MAGA folks felt like they were being shamed
they
for the
were,
way that,
and they
yeah,
should have been.
because they should be ashamed. Yeah, it's like some things it's good to be ashamed. It's good to feel
Yeah,
shame about.
yeah,
But look at Trump. See, he has no shame. He can do, and he told us that he has no shame because he said he could shoot somebody in the middle of Fifth Avenue and people would still support him. He doesn't have to be ashamed.
right,
Man,
right. And either and we say, well, you should know to be ashamed. There are plenty of Christian and people in this country who will look at us and use the exact same words. You should know
of
to
course,
be
yeah,
ashamed. Your behavior
right,
is reprehensible. It says right here in my book, you
yeah,
should be ashamed.
absolutely.
There are always going to be dueling ideologies. And you would expect that the basic level of humanity would somehow win out. I don't like the things that you're doing, but I understand as a human being you have the right to make that choice. Keep it at your house and it's not anybody's issue, because what they're immediately going to say is, well, you're being gay in public and I have to look at you and that's a problem. You're pushing your ideology on my children by being gay in public. Uh,
Or you're teaching about that as a alternative sexual orientation in school, that actually exists. That seems to be threatening too. But did I ever tell you that story when Jerry and I first came to Arkansas to look for locations? It was before I met you, I think. I think it was before I met you. We went down to southern Arkansas. I won't say where exactly, but we were taken
I
down
don't
there by
say
a
where, say
location.
where. Go ahead,
It
tell your story your ways.
it was near Stuttgart.
Okay, okay.
You know where that? Yeah.
I know where Stuttgart is. Okay, go ahead.
And we went down there, and our location scout we had found in Arkansas, and he took it, and he knew a man down there who was a real estate person. He was a landowner, and he was the kindest man, really nice man. Took us around, showed us the kind of the bayous down there with the beautiful water areas, very snaky, like a little bit like Southeast Asia, had a little bit of that look. Showed us rice fields,
Hmm.
and she was showing us places that he would allow us to film. And afterwards, he took us. He said, "I'm going to take you to the best catfish restaurant," and he paid for it. It was really so kind. He was so sweet to us. And we found some shooting locations, and so the whole thing when we were shooting down there was, do we reveal that this movie has some gay characters in it, and that it's a story about two men that are in love? Do we reveal that? And we didn't push that, but we did reveal it to people. It was on our website. If somebody asked specifically about the plot, we would tell them and all that, but we didn't advertise it. So, but when we were getting down to getting the location, I said, well, this is about two gay soldiers during the Vietnam War. There's a lot of combat footage in it and stuff. If we, blow anything up that breaks anything or in your property, we'll repair it. And he goes, I'm gonna have to get back to you about that. And a day or two later, he calls back and he said, I spoke with my team, and what were his words? I realized that this doesn't fit into our mission plan. And he's being really nice. But the gay issue was it. That was it. So, but to me, the way he handled it was totally appropriate. He had the right not to rent his land to us.
Hmm.
And then we went to another guy, young man. This man was middle aged. The next we met with a local farmer. He was probably in his late 20s, maybe early 30s. Hard working, salt of the earth guy, working this rice farm, and he'd built a duck lodge on a part of the rice farm. And we went and looked at the duck lodge. It was pretty big, And I saw that, we could cook in there. We could have, we could at least house some of the crew and actors and sort of stuff. And he was getting all excited about it. And he said, I don't care if you blow things up. I don't care if, it doesn't matter. You're not going to cause that much damage. And he was all excited. He said, well, what's the film about? And then I said, it was a Vietnam War film, and it was about two guys that were in love. And he says, was this a gay? And, he did it with a Southern accent. He said, is this a gay porno film? And I said, no, it's just about, there's no sex in it. There's two guys, and it's all the conflicts. And he goes, and you could just see genuine sadness in his eyes. He was so, and he said, I'm so sorry. I can't do this. He said, I have to live in this community. And I would do this, and then he says, and then we've had this problem in our family, and the man was suicided and was in the hospital, and we had to deal with this, and obviously he didn't know how to deal with this.
Right.
But he was being as kind as he could about the mindset that is in some parts of our country towards some people, whether they're gay or bisexual or lesbian or transgender. And I suspect whether they're black or brown or immigrants or whatever, each one has its own gradation of it's the other person that we can't live with, you know?
Yeah. Well, to paraphrase better writers than me, uh, the salt of the earth and the common clay of the West uh, equals moron. You know, but again, and that going back to what I said earlier, because it still does fit, you have the right to not have that be part of your life.
Yes.
It would be nice if they could find a way to do it that didn't do harm to others. Um,
Yeah.
you know, you
It
don't
didn't
want to
harm
make
us.
my, yeah, well, yeah, he didn't harm you. You just had to take your money to somebody else. Uh,
Inconvenienced. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, you know, and if and that is completely acceptable. The idea that because that's your private property, that's not a big business, that's not a
Yeah.
Walmart, that's not your bakery, that's not your nail salon, that all are places we expect to be able to publicly walk into. It's your property and your life, and we shouldn't be here to tell you how to handle that. It would be nice if people could learn to handle that in a way that is honest and non-harmful. You know, you're not voting for legislation that says not only can you not do a movie about gay people on my property, you can't even say the word gay in my state because that makes you that's you trying to explain to my children that something like that exists and that they could be them, and that's just going to encourage them, which is, you know, what do you
Well, and
think?
of course, in a way, it does encourage them because it says if you are gay or lesbian, there is a life for you outside of uh, a very traditional fundamentalist upbringing. There is a life for you. It's like, and that's really what America's about. You get to have your fundamentalist upbringing and your traditional, those kind of values that come from, I don't even know where they come from. Sometimes they don't really come from Christianity. They come from somewhere else, but it's like those values,
Well,
you're
they come from
allowed
the
to
way
have.
Christianity is taught. They come from the way
Yeah,
Christianity.
it's a kind of, yeah, it's some kind of a hybrid of um, Southern Midwest values
Oh
and
no,
race.
come on now. Don't just stick the South with that. It's everywhere. It's everywhere that
No,
there are.
we are lily white and innocent here in California. Well, with the exception of the total segregation of my high school, the total segregation of Long Beach growing up, the total, we like to pretend. Let
Right.
us
Well, I mean,
pretend.
I honestly prefer to believe that like California's biggest sin outside of sex is mostly drugs, and you know the Bible doesn't talk about drugs, so you know, you know, what have you guys really
We
done
got
wrong?
our own sin going on.
Well,
We love
everybody
our,
does. Every state
oh
has a
yeah.
favorite sin.
Well, the big California sin is how big is your house? It's kind of like how big is your dick? It's like, let's talk, or what is my house worth today? It's a really interesting, um, I've heard less of that lately. I'm hoping people are getting over it, but it's
No,
like,
no, no. They're selling their houses in California and moving to Arkansas.
absolutely, where you can actually buy something. Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah.
They are buying
Well,
some absolutely horrible houses, sight unseen. Uh, I don't have a lot of sympathy for them, but yeah, they end up with, you know, land that they can live on, and that's always a great thing, you know, going from having a postage stamp sized yard to a whole acre. You know, I would love to, you know, sell my car and be able to buy 10 acres somewhere.
wouldn't that be nice? Yeah, but yeah. Well, you got to come to California and buy a house. You know,
Just so I
there's
can
a
be disappointed and sell it.
there's a whole nother issue, but it's like the whole issue of widening income,
Yeah,
inequality in the
inequality.
country,
Yeah.
and I don't know how we're going to solve that, but I think the beginning is to have a government that has some interest in following the law. That would be helpful. I would like to see Because it used to, the Republican Party used to be the law and order party.
Yeah.
Interesting. They've embraced lawlessness. It's an amazing transformation. It's
Well, and again, you could say what they are embracing is an interpretation of the law that we get to wait a year for the courts to say, uh-uh, instead of just like on day one. Did you go in with a warrant? Okay, did you go in with a judicial warrant? What judge told you what you did was okay? Like it seems like that would be the very first court date. Where did you have any right to even be where this man was? Did you have
that's
any reason to stop them? That should be the beginning and end of every ICE court case, and somehow it isn't.
and that would be normal with most criminal prosecutions would start out with whether the search and the arrest were legal in the first place. And if they're not, it's over with. It's
Right.
finished.
But at every
Yeah.
level, that is not happening, and it's confusing because I mean, it makes it seem like the federal government is in cahoots across the board, and it's hard to argue against that, even when in the long run they disagree with what Trump and his goons are doing. In the short term, they allow it, and they allow it over and over and over and over.
And there's been hundreds of court cases that have ruled against Trump, and it takes forever to enforce it, and then they're appealed, and there's endless delays. I mean, the good news is that we're now 40 some days into, and the Democrats get a lot of tremendous criticism, which they've deserved, but
Mm.
at least they've refused to fund DHS over the issue of no warrants and face masks and what's the other one? Or no training of ICE agents in basic police procedure. It's
Well,
like,
and
and
that's
so far that's still shut down. So that's something. That's legal. Legal, there's legal intervention.
right. Well, and the Democrats, uh, their resistance is obviously not well, and not that any organization is a hive mind that way, but we have Fetterman and the six other Democrats he runs with constantly making decisions that undermine everything that the Democrats are trying to do right now. And we are not going to have, we've got to get to December to have any hope of flipping enough seats to remove those people as a threat to the defense of democracy that the Democrats are currently in the middle of, even if they're doing it badly, in my opinion.
It's slow. Yeah, we're waiting. So that means how many more months we got to wait? 7 more months, 8 more months, something like that. And yet in the meantime, there's a lot we can do. We can organize within our community. Everything can be local. What you see going on in your community is your responsibility. It's like, and we're coming up again. I want to mention it again. March 28th are the No Kings mobilization protests all over the country. There were 7 million people last time. There were, I think, 3 million the time before. I'm hoping we'll see 14 million this time, but we'll see. It's if we leave it to somebody else to go, or we leave it to somebody else to feed the immigrant in our community, or leave it to someone else to not to speak out when we don't do it. We weaken the whole process. This is where one person matters. You know. So I want to thank our multitude of listeners and viewers and anyone else that um, is showing up and suiting up to make their voices known for democracy and for the freedom of speech, the freedom of assembly, freedom of religion, and the freedom to lawfully immigrate to this country. You know, and for those that don't come lawfully, for having some kind of due process that that mirrors our Constitution. That's what I'm for. Join us again next time. Do you have some parting words, Mitch?
We're solid.
Thanks for listening. Oh, catch Love and Country, the movie. It's still on. It's on Tubi and Amazon and Deku and some other places. Catch my book. You can get it on at Barnes and Noble or Amazon. Love and Country. It's the backstory of what happened in the to those characters in the movie. So, and join us again next time for Halo, Love and Country.